real quick, let's talk about the your history with the Alamo, and I want to hear your history with the Alamo, and how this love for the Alamo got started.
My quick history is it's probably the first movie I ever remember seeing as a kid at a drive-in, one off of Garland Road, and which is where my family lived at the time. And then I saw it again when they reissued it in 1970. It was on TV the following year after that. And like every other kid in Texas, you grow up with the belief that the Battle of the Alamo was a religious experience, not the least because it happened in and around a church on a Sunday morning. And it's held up as the greatest example in American history of bravery and all that we should aspire to. And 1979, the first job I ever had on a movie was shot in Brackenfield, Texas, on the old Alamo set. It was not an Alamo movie, but and we never used the facade of the Alamo, but the other little shops and the village you see in John Wayne's The Alamo in Brackenfield, not San Antonio, in Brackenfield down there on the border. Alamo, Happy Shahan's Alamo Village, used for many, many things, including that particular movie that I worked on. And then 2004 got to, or 3, released in 2004, fulfill a sort of lifelong dream by being in an Alamo movie, the 2004 one that nobody saw. That was the biggest production in Texas history at the time, biggest sets ever built in Texas, some of the biggest built anywhere. We'll talk about all this stuff, but mainly we're going to talk about the 1961. We'll talk a little bit about the 2004 one. And I have put together a montage of all the major films, Hollywood movies made about the Alamo, starting in 1915. Going from D.W. Griffith's production of Martyrs of the Alamo, he was producer of it in 1915 and leading up to the 2004 Alamo. And we're going to talk about the background of it. We'll get into the historical aspects of the real battle and how that has been represented or not represented by, the various film versions. When you watch my montage, you will have to watch Jim Bowie die about 6 times. And I'm going to let Jack talk here.
Well, I was born in 1950. So in 54, Walt Disney released on television the miniseries Davy Crockett, King of the Wild Frontier. That was then made into a movie in 55. A year or so after that, The Last Command was put out by Republic Studios with Arthur Honeycutt as Crockett, Richard Carlson as Travis, Sterling Hayden as Bowie. Then came the Jim Bowie TV series the following 2 years, and then came, of course, the epic John Wayne's Alamo. And so at a very impressionable age, I was inundated with Alamo. But the one thing I noticed is that none of these productions agreed on specific points. That compelled me at the age of 10 to start reading. And I read everything I could find and discovered that books didn't agree either. And I read every historical book, and that compelled me to start doing my own research, primary research, and ultimately to writing. I did a lot of magazine articles and a few books on the Alamo. Then I started doing living history. I was invited down to the Alamo in 1986 for the sesquicentennial celebration and asked to portray Colonel Travis. First time I had to buy period clothes. And Thereafter, I became Bowie. I evolved into Colonel Bowie. And when the Discovery Channel made a documentary, I was cast as Bowie in that. Then the History Channel made a documentary. I was cast as Bowie in that. And they made a second one right after the 2004 movie, and I reprised my role as Bowie.
Oh, great.
So I worked on several films at the Wainamo, as we affectionately called it.
Oh, down there in Alamo Village?
Yeah.
Happy Shea Hands Ranch.
And then at Dripping Springs after the 2004 film was released.
Right.
And so I've been kind of tied into it.
Cool.
Speaking of Colonel Bowie,
Yeah.
this is an exact replica of the knife that Widmark carried
Oh, wow.
in the Alamo. The original knife was first made in '52 for the Iron Mistress, in which Alan Ladd played Bowie. Then it was used in The Last Command and used in the Jim Bowie series, and then carried by Widmark. So
This very one, or this is a replica?
this is a replica. No, but it's an impressive knife, and so for the rest of the 20th century, this is what we thought Jim Bowie's knife looked like. It didn't, by the way, but it's Hollywood's impression, and we were all inundated with that.
Was Jim Bowie's knife bigger or smaller than that?
Nobody knows. But we can say with certainty that it didn't look like that.
They also, in John Wayne's film, and we'll talk about this on Sunday, they give Bowie a really strange gun, and there's a history behind that, which I'll talk about. We talked about that.
Yeah, the Knox volley gun, a naval gun.
A British naval gun. And I'll go into it here, but on Sunday tell you the story told to me by an Alamo supposed historian as to why they gave him that gun. But that's a story for Sunday.
I have a question.
Yeah.
For Jeff, what was the biggest myth about the Alamo that you kind of discovered, that you kind of broke
Well,
in your book?
every respectable historian would know this is wrong. But in the Alamo, as well as the 2004 picture, the way it was finally edited, as well as countless films prior, the Alamo is buying time for Sam Houston to train his army. That's erroneous. Sam Houston was elected a delegate to the convention at Washington on the Brazos. He was there getting those jackanapes to sign the Declaration of Independence and prepare a constitution. He did not even know the Alamo was under siege until March 1st, probably. Maybe February 29th, it was a leap year. They started getting letters from Travis at the convention. He didn't leave the convention until March 6th. And March 6th was the day the Alamo fell. It fell that dawn, and Houston left early afternoon with a handful of men to go to the aid of the Alamo. Arrived at Gonzales 5 days later. There were some 300 plus volunteers assembled at Gonzales, and so on March 11th, Houston took command of an army. But obviously, he would find out for sure the Alamo had fallen the next day. So
we'll point that out. That's still that's in John Wayne's version. That's in the 2004 version. Richard Boone plays him, plays Houston. In John Wayne's version, Dennis Quaid in the 2004, who I mostly worked with Dennis Quaid.
Where did that myth come from? I mean, why is it widely believed? I mean,
I don't know. I think they taught that in schools.
yes.
And certainly in my period, and most of yours, the story of the Alamo has been romanticized and glorified beyond all reality. These men became demigods. They weren't. They were just ordinary people caught in a difficult situation, and they basically made an heroic stand. But the notion that these men were clubbing down 34 Mexicans apiece is absurd.
I have noticed that in all the various versions in the trailers for them, I'm not even going to get into the TV versions. I'll be there all day, except for Disney's, because they re-edited it and released it in '55 as a feature. But that the exact number of defenders and the number of the army changes in every film. In the trailer, I think, for John Wayne THE ALAMO, at least in the newspaper ad that I have, they say 156 men at the Alamo and 5,000 Mexican troops, which later I think became like 180-something defenders of the Alamo and 7,000 Mexican troops. They can't make up their mind on that either.
We do know with some certainty Santa Anna arrived at Bahar, San Antonio, on the 23rd of February with about 1,500 men. Other reinforcements came in. Wayne's movie is correct in saying that the Mexican army trailed all the way to the Rio Grande. Yeah. But it was probably never larger than 2,500 at the Alamo.
Really?
And the Alamo garrison generally portrayed in the 180s, 183, 189. Right. It could have been 200. I mean, I'd say 200, give or take, because we'll never know. There are no records of people who came and went. And the other thing, and John Wayne's movie does this no service. In John Wayne's movie, he has the Texians on the walls. You'll see from frame line to frame line. They're shoulder to shoulder. The Alamo compound was over 3 acres large. It wasn't just the church. It was a whole big compound.
And he has a drawing of it from 1836.
The Alamo had 18 mounted artillery, the largest collection of artillery west of the Mississippi. It was much larger than what Santa Anna brought with him, despite John Wayne's movie. But with the small garrison that Travis had, he could only place a small cannon crew around each artillery piece and a few riflemen. Nowhere did you see people shoulder to shoulder fighting over the wall. The Alamo could not hold with the number of men they had. It was too large a compound. They had to get reinforcements.
As a screenwriting teacher, which I also am, I know there's a little phrase that goes, makes for a better story. So rather than, trying to show people fighting sparsely among a whole bunch of walls, you get them all together on one wall. You come up with the idea that, Santa Anna was using the Alamo as bait to draw Houston in there. But he didn't need to, because Houston didn't have an army. Right, but who knew? But it makes for the story. It gives a motivation for them having this 13-day siege and saying, the word, let those messengers go. We want Houston to know this, so he'll come here and engage us. And then after 12 days, Santa Anna realized Houston's not coming, to hell with it, let's just kill him. Which is basically how all the major film versions tell the story. But we'll talk about that too. But, we're going to touch on the politics, as rightly so, that the real event and the movies have been analyzed a lot now as to exactly who were the good guys, who were the bad guys. The issue of slavery can't be avoided in it. We'll talk a little bit about that.
Well, even going back to Walt Disney's Davy Crockett, they're not introduced, they're just there, but there are sombrero-wearing, serape-clad defenders of the Alamo.
Right.
And Wayne made a big deal out of having the Tejanos helping defend.
He did.
Probably larger in the unedited version than in the edited version that we will see. And, usually they focus on Seguin, but you know, there were Tejanos who died defending the Alamo.
And the 2004 version, even though it was cut way down after a disastrous sneak preview, still also tried to make that clear that there were Anglos and Latinos on both sides. So we'll get into that. Questions?
But you had something about
Oh,
that.
I was going to say, I know exactly where they captured Santa Ana after the Battle of San Jacinto, because at one time, this was right by the Washburn Tunnel in Pasadena, Texas, and they had cordoned it off on a little fence area. But supposedly that's where Santa Ana was captured when, one of his men saw him dressed as just a regular kind of.
So many variations on that story, too.
Yes, there are.
In my part, funny you should mention that, in the 2004 film was to play the guy who finds Santa Ana in the desert and leads him back into the camp on a chain or rope. And according to the legend, he was dressed, according to whose story you want to, either in drag or dressed as a peon.
With red velvet shoes on or something.
And then when he got back into the camp, his troops who were captured suddenly stood up, said, "Viva Santa Ana," and saluted them. And he's like, "Oh, no." And we shot that scene, and they cut so much out of it. Those scenes in the film, in the 2004 film, following all about San Jacinto, what follows, are incoherent to anybody who doesn't know Texas history. I'll talk more about that.
History's not an exact science.
Yeah.
It's dangerous to be too absolute. But Santa Ana was probably wearing the silk, he had white pants, which were kind of standard issue, and then a white silk shirt. He fled into the marsh, and he came out muddy. I don't think he didn't have time to change clothes. He wore what he had, and it just
He was
looked.
taking care of his hide.
Okay, what else? Any other questions? If you've never seen John Wayne's film, which has much to commend it, on a big screen, you're going to enjoy it. It is an epic from the age of epics, and
Plus a beautiful song.
great music. And I actually want to point out the Alamo 1960 has a great score by Dmitri Tiomkin, something sorely missing from the 2004 film. and it spawned, Wayne's film spawned 2 hit songs that are on the top 40.
Wow.
And Wayne literally.
Yeah.
I mean, the story is he wanted to do this from 39 on. And finally left Republic because they couldn't get Herbert Yates to agree, formed his own company. It was an obsession of his, and he faced epic, overwhelming odds, but he triumphed. He got that movie made. I have a love-hate relationship with it. I really do. There are things that are fabulous about it, and things I cringe at every time I see it.
When Republic stole his script and made their version, The Last Command, Wayne said Republic stole his script, and I've noticed in watching Last Command, there are things in it that are also 5 years later.
Because James Edward Grant wrote The Last Command. It wasn't called that then, but that was what Republic did not want to lose Wayne, so they were trying to keep him from leaving. We'll make this movie. They just stalled. They got a script written. Wayne finally got exasperated and left, but the script stayed with Republic. And then Herbert Yates decided to make that into a movie.
Wayne remembers that one now.
Well, it's some people in the Alamo community, it is really favored by a lot of people. It doesn't have the epic proportions of Wayne's film, but there's some neat things in it. I don't think it really measures up to.
It's also the first Alamo movie made in color, widescreen aspect ratio for the theaters, because Disney's was not made for theaters, but Disney knowing where to make a buck and smartly having shot it in color the first time around, edited it into a feature the 2 episodes, which really only came out just 3 months before Last Command. So it was Alamo Summer in '55.
Yeah.
And I was born in that summer, so I guess it all seeped into my brain somewhere.
But James Edward Grant, who wrote the 2 screenplays, because Wayne had him
Right.
redo it, to me, his screenplay is the biggest failing of John Wayne's movie. Grant he could put some things that Wayne loved the dialogue he wrote, but Grant insisted to Wayne, I read everything there is on the Alamo. If he did, he didn't remember a thing he read.
Yeah.
Yes, Deb?
Do you know why John Wayne spent the extra money and filmed it on Todd AO and not regular, aspect ratio?
Oh, that's a good question.
Well, I would guess because that was super hot at the time, thanks to Around the World in 80 Days, and it was a huge selling gimmick for it. And it even dictated where they could show it, what theaters they could show it in. I want to talk, not now, but on Sunday, a little bit about its premiere in San Antonio, which had 2 theaters capable of showing Todd AO. The biggest one they couldn't use because they were showing Ben-Hur at the time, in Todd AO.
And the Alamo was a product of an era when they were doing these epic
Yeah.
motion pictures, these roadshow engagements, Spartacus and Ben-Hur, and just all these epic widescreen productions with intermissions.
And Gordon, for anyone here who don't know, could you explain what Todd AO is?
Todd AO is a widescreen process invented by Richard Todd, who is Elizabeth Taylor's husband, but left for less than a year. He died. Michael Todd, I'm sorry, you're right. Michael Todd. But the process survived him and was one of many big screen, super big screen 70 millimeter processes made at the time. There's still variations of that still exist to this day.
And didn't he get the idea from the failings of Cinerama and the quirkiness of Cinerama, or no?
That's possible.
And
I bet
also,
Jim back
this
there
would
probably
be-
knows more about that than I do. No? Not really?
Well, before we wrap up, I want to point out that we have this drawing of John Wayne that will be raffled off the raffle money will go for the Real Al Cinema, which is a part of the Garland High School. It's a 4-year IB program at Garland High School, and so this will be the image that, or the frame piece that you can win through raffles this year. Yes. Is it going to be signed? We're hoping that Anita Swift will sign this. She's John Wayne's granddaughter, and she's in the Alamo.
Yes.
So, yes.
At the age of 1.
like a little baby.
In her mother's arms.
Anna Dickinson's little baby or something.
No, it's not Susanna Dickinson. Aisa Wayne, who was John Wayne's daughter, who was only 4 or 5 at the time, I
Yeah.
think,
Oh, that's
Yeah.
plays Mrs. Dickinson's daughter.
Right.
okay.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you both so much. And